Senator from Uvalde. Uvalde is the place of Rob Elementary. So let's give him a big round of noise.
Thank you, everybody. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. Le vamos a ganar a Ted Cruz. Eso sí lo prometo. That's what he said. He said, we're going to beat Ted Cruz. And Theory can do that in French and several other languages. So we're going to beat this guy. And I want to tell you how we're doing. First off, it has been an honor to be here with you over the last 3 days. I promise you this, we're going to be here early and often in Harris County and Brazoria County and Montgomery County and in Fort Bend County and every county around here, because we're in Galveston County specifically, right? Because we have to take our state back. We have to take our country back. We have to get it back from people that do not care about us. Yes. That do not care about our children. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm from San Antonio. I've been in the legislature for a while now. I've been in the Democrat in the House and then in the Senate for the last 2 terms. And prior to that on City Council. My day job, I'm an immigration lawyer. That's what I do in San Antonio. My wife is a lovely woman named Sarah. And I've got 2 beautiful teenage girls that would have been here today, but one of them has a date with a boy tonight, and that's really working on me. I'm having to kind of get used to this stuff. And anybody got any tips, you let me know. But this is, she's 16, and that's happening in my life right now. Honestly, folks, my wife and I, we've served our whole, she's been part of this, and we served in the legislature for some time. And we served with some really, let's just say it, with some really crazy people. And the Republican Party has gotten crazier and crazier and crazier. It is no longer the party of Joe Strauss, a man that I respected and could work with. That is no longer the party of Ronald Reagan. Didn't respect him very much, but at least you knew that his politics were about business and making sure that rich people got richer and all that other stuff, the stuff that we want everybody to get rich, right? That's the difference primarily between those Republicans. But those guys aren't around anymore. And the Republican Party today is a party of hate, it's a party of division, it's a party of people that would rather keep us down than let us all lift up.
Amen.
And so we have to understand what we're dealing with right now. These folks aren't real. I don't know what they are, but they're now Republicans. And so we have a lot of work to do. What happened to me, what happened to these children, what happened to their parents on May 24th was a game changer for me. As I started this message just now, I was going to tell you that my wife and I were thinking about leaving public office because it had gotten so contentious in Austin. I'm tired of dealing with people and accepting the scraps of government. And so I pushed back this session, and I pushed back against Dan Patrick.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you did.
I got a teacher amendment when these guys were trying to push their vouchers. I got a teacher amendment to make sure our teachers got a pay raise across this state. Some of the lowest paid teachers in the United States here in Texas. I got that amendment on in the Senate, made every one of those Republicans vote for it, and then they stripped it in the House because they simply do not care about teachers. Let's be really clear. And now our governor, he wants us to have us back in after this trial that Joe talked about, wants to have us back for a special session to talk about vouchers. There he's right. It's nonsense. But let's look at what it is. And Ted Cruz, the biggest fan of this governor, he was just promoting vouchers yesterday and the day before. And he wants to have 160,000 kids would benefit from vouchers. They'd be able to go to the private school they're choosing. Let's forget the other 4.8 million kids. The hell with them. Because that's Greg Abbott's policy. He doesn't care about anybody but serving with rich and wealthy people. There's 5 million kids in this state. They have been poor boying education for the last 30 years, and we are now living in the fruits of an educational system that spends 45% in the nation in spending, and we're 45 in performance. That's pretty pathetic. It's pretty pathetic. There was a columnist back in the day. Her name was Molly Islands. Do y'all remember Molly? Yeah. I never met her. I would have liked to party with that lady. She said, Texas and Mississippi are a lot alike, both low tax and low service states. The only difference is Texas can afford to do so much better. And isn't that the truth? We have the highest revenue next to California in the nation in oil and gas and taxation and everything else. And yet we treat our teachers so poorly, we treat our students so poorly, and yet in the end, you get what you invest. You get what you invest. We need to do better. When you talk about the people that are running for this office, all good Democrats, when we talk about the guy that we're running against, the guy that doesn't care about any of us at all, would rather have us living in an economic failure when he voted against the Economic Stabilization Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, because he would rather have our economy in a wreck than the stable economy that we have now. When he acted along with every Republican and demanded the re-implementation in the state, in keeping and maintaining Title 42, the so-called stay in Mexico policy, over the last 2 months we've seen immigration crossings cut in half under Title 8, under Joe Biden's Title 8. That's the immigration law enforcement protocol. And yet they would rather have us be in chaos. And so what do? Ted Cruz's buddy, the governor, he put some buoys down on the river. I was there last week. These buoys are not just buoys. In the middle of every buoy there is this, Sylvia Garcia calls it the buzzsaw. There is a thing that circles around and it's got blades on it. If you try to grab it to not drown, you will lacerate yourself. That's the kind of immigration policy that Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz would rather us have. Rather than an immigration policy that's fair, an immigration policy that reinvents our H-2A and our H-2B visa program, that takes immigrants and says, arriving immigrants and says, hey, look, go to the country of origin, go apply for a job at the State Department via the Department of Labor, because we need to reinvent a system that makes sense for us all. So our ranchers and farmers will have the workers that they need, so that our restaurants and hotels will have the workers that they need, so that the roofing companies that are lacking people, Americans, to work in 110-degree heat will have people that want to do those jobs. Because I don't know about you, but I'm tired of a government and I'm tired of people like Ted Cruz blaming these poor immigrants for everything that ails us. Immigrants looking for a dream. Yes, sir. Our poor education outcomes aren't the fault of those immigrants. Our poor Medicare and medical costs that we have are not the fault of those immigrants. The state of Texas is dead last on Medicare funding for mental health care and pretty damn near dead last on medical funding itself. Theory talked about 20% of all Texans don't have health care. Let's talk about what happens. They're digging into their pocketbooks $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 to come up with out-of-pocket medical costs. We need a United States senator that's going to tell a rogue governor like Greg Abbott, you must give Medicaid expansion to the state of Texas. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about what it is, because you all get it. Medicaid expansion isn't just health care for the poor. It's for the working class Texans, for those 20% that he's talking about. We cannot allow governors like Greg Abbott to maintain people in the middle class and in the working class in poverty, because being middle class when I was growing up meant that you had a chance. It gave my parents the ability to come, also immigrants to this country, to be able to have something, have some status, to put their kids through school, and to push us and encourage us to put ourselves through college and law school like I did. Where we are right now with these people, we're living in a place where there is no opportunity. We're living with a senator who doesn't care about us. I don't even think he cares about Republicans. We're living in a state where we have a senator that voted against a bipartisan infrastructure act. That bipartisan infrastructure act brought $66 billion in jobs, in projects to this state, which means jobs and opportunity for construction workers and the economic boom that brings with it. That doesn't make sense. It simply doesn't make sense. Everybody should have the opportunity to live the American dream. And under Ted Cruz, we simply do not have that opportunity because he would rather... Wait till someone gets back to the parking lot. Listen, that's where we are. That's where we are right now in this country. And so we have to have very real conversations about what's happening with the people that are currently representing us. He is not a serious person. And I know I don't need to tell you to vote Cruz out, because you're all going to do that. But this is all part of the message that we have to have with the same Republican so-called working class that have been bamboozled by the likes of Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. Because they don't have their back. They don't have their back at all, do they? Because if they're not bringing jobs, and they're voting against the broadband bill, because that's what he did. He voted against the broadband bill, which is $300 million in Texas, opportunity and jobs. That is the kind of thing that's happening in the state. Now, I want to end on the issues with this. What happened on May 24th was really something that was, it changed my worldview. It changed my view of myself, of what I wanted, myself and for my children. My kids don't, and your kids, and you don't go to the movies the same. You don't go to Walmart the same. You don't go to church the same. Where we are on guns is inexcusable. The chaos that has been created in this state and in other states like it is entirely in the hands of the Republican Party. And the blood that happens every time we have another shooting like this is they are responsible for it. Because nowadays, each day, anybody and everybody can have access to a gun in Texas. You don't even need to show your driver's license at a gun show. And so I'm a gun owner, and I get it. It was part of my culture growing up in South Texas. But listen, 65% of Republican voters agree with me. Increase in age limit, have extreme risk protecting orders, and close the gun show loophole. Why can't we just do that? And if we want to talk about an assault weapons ban, let's do that with an exception for veterans and law enforcement, and maybe even the farmers that have a feral hog problem. I get it. Listen, I understand it. I live in South Texas. But we are not, these people, they don't care about kids. And this guy voted against the Safer Communities Act because I guess he would rather have children just fend for themselves. So I tell you the issues that you already know because you need to have a conversation with your neighbors. They're the same people that tell us, no, you're wrong. No. We have to come together and work together because we are all in this together. We're all in this boat together. And we have to be able to talk about things that help us all, like universal health care, like a single-payer system, like gun reform. We have to have a real talk about ideas that are going to be, that help everybody and lift us all up. I'm going to close with this thing. And it's the notion and the idea, because I get this question all the time. Well, how are you going to win? Well, we're going to win because these gentlemen, myself and others, we're going to keep doing this and just talking to people. But in the last election against Ted Cruz, the vote difference was about 280,000 votes. Imagine that, just 280,000 votes. I promise you that in Harris and surrounding counties, those 280 votes are right here, right now.
Yep.
Right here, right now. And so let me throw some numbers at you. 5.3 million votes was the votes that Democrats cast in that election, right? 5.3 million. Each time I go to an event like this, I see a room full of people. And it's the same people. I'll go to the same Democrat meeting the following month. It's the same folks. So I know you're all voting. I get it. You are the diehards. So let's assume that 20% of that 5 million are the diehards. 1 million voters. 1 million diehard voters across this state that we all know already vote. Your job is to find that person who doesn't vote. The kid that says, mañana. The kid that says, it doesn't matter. The young adult that says, that's not going to do anything for me. If it's a kid and you're related to him, take the phone away. Take that phone away for 20 minutes and say, you want your phone back? You're going to have to come with me over here to vote. You're going to have to come over and take 20 minutes of your life every 2 years to do something that is meaningful and right and fair for all of us, because they have to participate. Because I promise you this on participation, those Republicans are continue to pass law after law after law that keeps people from participating. And now they've passed a law that your neighbor in Harris County, where the state of Texas gets to count their votes. How do you like that? Because you know why? Because you're winning. You're winning, and they see the real fact and the real truth. And so, each one of us, million, we have to take these people out for an experiment of their lives. And the reason why is because 19 little kids had to sit there for 77 minutes and die. 2 teachers died. And so I think that those 21 souls deserve 15 minutes of our time. They deserve 15 minutes of our time to change this state and to do something that's right and just, and make sure that we bring in leaders that are going to talk about opportunity for all, that are going to talk about fairness in women's reproductive rights, that are going to talk about getting off our back finally, because we have to remove this yoke that we've been under for 30 years, because 30 years is far too long.
Yes, sir.
And we have to do this because it is now time that we lose Cruz for sure, but that it is time that we bring fairness back to our state. I promise you this, those people treat this like a war, we must too. And when you go to war, you bring your friends. So find that kid, find that non-voter, drag them out, because we must. We have no alternative here. Thank you, folks. I want to thank you for this time and the opportunity. I look forward to visiting you. And I promise you won't be nervous.